Please subscribe. Black Maid rescues billionaire from deadly snake bite. He decides to pay her with marriage. They say you never forget the face of someone who saves your life. What they don't tell you is that sometimes, that face becomes the only one you ever want to see again. The scream that tore through the morning air of the Whitmore estate wasn't the kind that came from someone startled by a spider or a mouse. It was primal, desperate, the sound of someone staring death directly in the face. Naomi Washington's hands were elbow-deep in soapy water, scrubbing the ornate tiles of the pool house bathroom when she heard it. For a split second, she froze. The mansion sprawled across 15 acres of manicured Connecticut landscape, and she'd worked there for 3 years without hearing anything more alarming than raised voices during business calls or the occasional crash of expensive china during one of Mrs. Whitmore's episodes. But this was different. She didn't think. Her grandmother used to say that thinking could get you killed in a crisis. Your body knew what to do before your mind caught up. Naomi dropped the scrub brush, her sneakers squeaking against the wet floor as she bolted toward the sound. The morning sun cast long shadows across the estate's gardens, and the October air carried the scent of dying roses. Naomi's heart hammered against her ribs as she ran, her breath coming in short gasps. She wasn't young anymore, 42 years old, with knees that complained after long shifts and a back that ached from years of bending, scrubbing, and serving. But she ran like she was 20 again. The scream had come from the direction of the greenhouse, Mr. Whitmore's sanctuary. Jonathan Whitmore III, billionaire tech mogul, reclusive genius, and possibly the most complicated man Naomi had ever encountered, spent his mornings there among his exotic plants. She wasn't supposed to disturb him during those hours. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, had made that abundantly clear during Naomi's first week. Mr. Whitmore values his privacy, Mrs. Chen had said, her voice crisp and final. When he's in the greenhouse, he doesn't exist. Understood? But the scream had been his. Naomi was certain of it. She burst through the greenhouse door, and the humid air hit her like a wall. The glass structure was filled with plants from every corner of the world, orchids from Thailand, bromeliads from Brazil, carnivorous pitcher plants from Borneo. It was Jonathan's hobby, his escape from the empire he'd built from nothing. And there he was, on the ground. Jonathan Whitmore was 38 years old, 6 feet tall, with dark hair that perpetually looked like he'd been running his fingers through it. He wore expensive casual clothes, designer jeans and a linen shirt that probably cost more than Naomi made in a month. His face, normally composed and distant, was contorted in agony. His left hand clutched his right forearm, and even from 10 feet away, Naomi could see the 2 distinct puncture wounds, angry and red, with dark veins already spreading up toward his elbow. "Don't, come closer," Jonathan gasped, his face pale and beaded with sweat. "Snake. Somewhere, in here." Naomi's eyes darted around the greenhouse floor. There, coiled near an overturned pot, its scales gleaming like polished obsidian in the filtered sunlight, was a snake. She didn't know species or types, but she knew danger when she saw it. The snake was maybe 4 feet long, slender, with a distinctive triangular head. Black Mamba. The words floated up from some nature documentary she'd watched with her daughter years ago. One of the deadliest snakes in the world. Native to Africa. Fast. Aggressive. And its venom could kill a grown man in under 20 minutes. "How long?" Naomi demanded, already moving toward Jonathan despite his warning. "What? How long since it bit you?" Jonathan's eyes were starting to glaze. 3, maybe 4 minutes. Called 911 but, dropped my phone. Naomi spotted the shattered iPhone near his feet. Her mind raced. The hospital was 20 minutes away, minimum. An ambulance would take at least 15 to arrive, maybe more. Jonathan didn't have that kind of time. She'd grown up in rural Georgia, where her grandfather had taught her and her siblings basic wilderness survival. "Most snake bites ain't fatal if you keep your head," he used to say. "But you gotta keep your head." "Can you walk?" she asked, kneeling beside Jonathan. "Dizzy," he muttered. His breathing was becoming labored. Naomi had never touched Jonathan Whitmore before. In 3 years of working in his home, she'd maintained the invisible boundary that existed between people like her and people like him. She cleaned his spaces, laundered his clothes, prepared his meals when the chef was off, but they occupied different worlds. Now she grabbed his arm with both hands, feeling the expensive fabric of his shirt, the warmth of his skin, the tremor of his muscles. "Stay calm," she said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "The more your heart races, the faster the venom spreads. I need you to breathe slowly. In through your nose, out through your mouth." "I'm going to die," Jonathan said, and there was something almost childlike in his voice. For all his billions, all his power, he was just a terrified man. "Not today, you're not," Naomi said firmly. "I don't clean this whole damn mansion by myself just to have you die in a greenhouse." Despite everything, Jonathan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Naomi looked around frantically. The greenhouse had a utility sink in the corner. She half-dragged, half-carried Jonathan there, his weight heavy against her. For a thin man, he was solid muscle. She turned on the cold water. "What are you?" "Slowing your circulation," she said, thrusting his arm under the cold stream. "And washing the wound. We need to keep you as calm and still as possible." She pulled out her own phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, putting it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency?" "Snake bite, black mamba I think, Whitmore Estate on Riverside Road. He was bitten maybe 5 minutes ago. Venom is spreading fast." The operator's voice became urgent. "Ma'am, I need you to keep the victim calm and still. Don't try to suck out the venom or apply a tourniquet." "Is the victim conscious?" "Yes," Naomi said, looking at Jonathan, whose eyes were fighting to focus. "Ambulance is en route, 12 minutes out." "Stay on the line." 12 minutes. It might as well have been 12 hours. Jonathan slumped against the wall, and Naomi lowered him to the ground, propping his head on her lap. She'd seen people die before, her grandmother, her brother after a car accident, and she recognized the signs. The gray pallor, the shallow breathing, the look in the eyes of someone slipping away. "Hey," she said, patting his cheek perhaps more roughly than necessary. "Stay with me, Mr. Whitmore." "Jonathan," he whispered. "If I'm dying, call me Jonathan." "You're not dying, Jonathan," Naomi said. "But you need to fight. Talk to me. Tell me about your plants." "Why?" His voice was fading. "Because I said so," Naomi replied. "Come on. That one there, the purple one." "What is it?" Jonathan's eyes drifted toward the orchid she was pointing at. "Vanda, coeruleia. Himalayan, blue orchid. Rare." "Why do you like it?" "Beautiful, defies expectations. Grows in harsh conditions." Naomi kept him talking, asking questions about anything and everything. She told the 911 operator what she was seeing, the progression of symptoms, the spreading discoloration, Jonathan's decreasing responsiveness. "You're doing great," the operator said. "Keep him talking. The paramedics are 8 minutes away." But Jonathan's eyes were closing. "No, no, no," Naomi said sharply. "Jonathan Whitmore, you open your eyes right now. You don't get to check out. You hear me? You've got a whole company depending on you. You've got people who need you." "No one needs me," Jonathan murmured, his words slurring. "Just my money." Something in those words pierced through Naomi's panic. She'd seen Jonathan from a distance for 3 years, the lonely man who ate breakfast by himself, who worked 18-hour days, who spent holidays alone in his study while his staff went home to their families. She'd heard the other housekeepers gossip about his failed engagement 2 years ago, about the family that only called when they wanted something, about the friends who'd revealed themselves to be opportunists. "That's not true," Naomi said, and she was surprised to realize she meant it. "You matter, Jonathan. Not your money. You. So you're going to stay alive, understand? That's an order." His lips moved, but no sound came out. Jonathan. She shook him gently, then harder. Stay awake. His pulse under her fingers was rapid and thready. His breathing had become shallow. Naomi made a decision that was either brave or stupid, probably both. She'd heard once, years ago, that pressure points could slow blood flow. She found the spot on Jonathan's arm, just above the bite, and pressed down hard with both thumbs. Jonathan's eyes flew open in pain. Sorry, Naomi said, not releasing the pressure. But I need you conscious. Hurts, he gasped. Good. That means you're alive. Keep feeling it. In the distance, Naomi heard the most beautiful sound in the world, sirens. They're coming, she told Jonathan. You hear that? Hold on. Just a little longer. The paramedics burst through the greenhouse door 4 minutes later, and Naomi had never been so happy to see anyone in her life. She rattled off everything, time of bite, symptoms, what she'd done, while they worked with practiced efficiency. You may have saved his life, one paramedic said as they loaded Jonathan onto a stretcher. That pressure point technique, where'd you learn that? My grandfather, Naomi said. He knew things. They rushed Jonathan out, and Naomi stood in the greenhouse, her scrub soaked with water and sweat, her hands shaking with delayed adrenaline. The black mamba was still coiled by the overturned pot, and she carefully backed away, closing the greenhouse door behind her. Mrs. Chin found her 20 minutes later, sitting on the pool house steps, staring at nothing. What happened? The head housekeeper demanded. The other staff said there were paramedics. Snake bite, Naomi said quietly. Mr. Whitmore was bitten by a black mamba in the greenhouse. Mrs. Chen's hand flew to her mouth. Is he alive? They got him in time. Mrs. Chen sat down heavily beside her. You found him? Naomi nodded. You saved him. It wasn't a question, but Naomi nodded again anyway. Naomi Washington, Mrs. Chen said slowly, you are either the bravest or the most foolish woman I've ever met. That snake could have killed you too. Didn't think about that, Naomi admitted. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Mrs. Chen patted her hand. Take the rest of the day off. Paid. I'll handle things here. But Naomi couldn't go home. She couldn't explain it, but she needed to know that Jonathan was all right. So instead of leaving, she finished her shift, cleaned the pool house bathroom, prepared dinner that no one would eat, and waited. At 8 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Washington? An unfamiliar male voice. This is Dr. Patel from Greenwich Hospital. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Whitmore. Naomi's heart stopped. Is he? He's going to be fine. We administered antivenin, and he's stable. He's actually the reason I'm calling. He asked me to contact you, to let you know he's all right. He said you'd want to know. Relief flooded through her so intensely that her knees went weak. Thank you. Thank God. Ms. Washington, I want you to know, if you hadn't acted as quickly as you did, the outcome would have been very different. You saved his life. After she hung up, Naomi sat in her small car in the mansion's staff parking area and cried. She cried for the fear she'd pushed down, for the relief, for the strange intimacy of holding a dying man's head in her lap, for the weird crossing of worlds that had occurred in that greenhouse. Then she drove home to her small apartment, where her daughter Jasmine was studying for midterms. Hey, Mom, Jasmine called from her room. How was work? Interesting, Naomi replied, which was possibly the understatement of the century. She didn't tell Jasmine what had happened. How could she explain it? She was just the maid. She'd done what anyone would have done. Tomorrow, everything would go back to normal. Jonathan would return from the hospital, and the invisible boundaries would re-establish themselves. Life would go on. Except it didn't. Jonathan Whitmore was released from the hospital 3 days later, and when he returned to the estate, the first person he asked for was Naomi. She was folding linens in the laundry room when Mrs. Chin found her. "Mr. Whitmore wants to see you in his study," the head housekeeper said, her expression carefully neutral. Naomi's stomach tightened. "Did I do something wrong?" "Just go." The walk to Jonathan's study felt like a mile, though it was only down 2 hallways. She'd cleaned this room 1,000 times but never while he was in it. She knocked on the heavy oak door. "Come in." Jonathan was sitting behind his desk, his right arm bandaged from wrist to elbow. He looked tired, thinner than before, but alive. His dark eyes fixed on her as she entered, and she saw something in them she couldn't quite name. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Whitmore?" "Sit down, please," he said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. Naomi perched on the edge of the seat, uncomfortable. Employees didn't sit in here. This was where billionaire deals were made, where company decisions happened. "How are you feeling?" she asked, because someone had to break the silence. "Alive, thanks to you." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, studying her. "The doctor said if you hadn't kept me calm, if you hadn't slowed my circulation with the cold water and the pressure point technique," he stopped, swallowed hard. "They said I wouldn't have made it. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Jonathan said firmly. "Most people would have panicked. Or run from the snake. Or tried something that would have made it worse. You kept your head. You saved my life, Naomi." The sound of her first name in his voice did something strange to her chest. "I'm grateful you're all right," she said quietly. "I want to do something for you. To thank you." Jonathan opened his desk drawer and pulled out a checkbook. And just like that, the spell broke. "I don't want your money, Mr. Whitmore," Naomi said, standing up. Jonathan looked startled. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend. I didn't save your life for a reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Because you needed help." She moved toward the door. "Wait," Jonathan said, standing abruptly. "Please. I'm handling this badly." Naomi paused, her hand on the doorknob. "I'm not good at this," Jonathan continued. "At gratitude. At genuine human interaction, if I'm being honest. Everything in my life has a price tag, a transaction. I didn't mean to reduce what you did to a check. It's just the only language I know." There was something raw in his voice that made Naomi turn around. Jonathan Whitmore, billionaire, looked lost. "You don't owe me anything," Naomi said gently. "But if you want to thank me, you can tell me how a black mamba ended up in your greenhouse." Jonathan's expression shifted to confusion, then anger. "That's what I've been trying to figure out. Black mambas aren't native to Connecticut. Someone put it there. Someone tried to kill you?" "It appears so." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact, as if assassination attempts were just another Tuesday. "Shouldn't you call the police?" "I have people looking into it. This isn't the first incident. But it's the closest anyone's come to succeeding." He sat back down, suddenly looking exhausted. "The police would make it public, and that would create chaos for the company. Stock prices would plummet. People depend on my company for their livelihoods." "People depend on you being alive," Naomi pointed out. Jonathan smiled, a real smile this time, and it transformed his face. "You're very direct. Comes from not having the luxury to be anything else." They looked at each other across the expanse of the study, and something passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of each other's humanity. "Will you at least let me do something?" Jonathan asked. "Not payment. Just, I'd like to do something kind for someone who was kind to me. It happens so rarely." That last sentence broke Naomi's heart a little. "My daughter," she heard herself say. "Jasmine. She's studying pre-med at community college. She wants to be a doctor, but the tuition for medical school." She trailed off, embarrassed. "That's the only thing I want. Help her. Let her achieve her dream." Jonathan's expression softened. "Consider it done." Full scholarship, whatever she needs. I can't accept. You saved my life, Naomi. Let me help give your daughter hers. Naomi's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Thank you. No. Thank you. She left the study feeling like the world had tilted on its axis somehow, like something fundamental had shifted. Over the following weeks, things were different. Jonathan started spending less time hidden away and more time in the common areas of the mansion. He'd appear in the kitchen while Naomi was preparing meals, ostensibly for coffee, but he'd linger, asking questions about her day, her life, her thoughts on things. At first, Naomi was wary. She'd worked for enough wealthy families to know that sometimes they wanted to feel good about themselves by being friendly with the help, but it never lasted. It was a performance of egalitarianism that made them feel progressive without actually challenging any power structures. But Jonathan was different. He listened, really listened. When she talked about Jasmine's dreams, he asked thoughtful questions. When she mentioned her aching back from years of cleaning work, he immediately hired a massage therapist to visit weekly for all the staff. When she told him about her love of reading, he started leaving books he thought she'd like in the staff room. You're making people nervous, Mrs. Chen told her one afternoon. The other staff think you're getting special treatment. I saved his life, Naomi said defensively. I know. And God bless you for it. But be careful, Naomi. Men like Jonathan Whitmore, they live in a different world. This gratitude phase will pass, and then what? Mrs. Chen's words echoed her own fears, but Naomi couldn't seem to help herself. She looked forward to those morning conversations in the kitchen, to the way Jonathan's face would light up when he explained some complex business concept and she'd ask questions that challenged his assumptions. She liked the person he was becoming in these small moments, or maybe the person he'd always been underneath the armor of wealth and isolation. The truth was, she was starting to care about him. And that was dangerous. One evening, 2 months after the snake bite, Naomi was cleaning Jonathan's study when she found him asleep at his desk, his head on his arms, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. The bandage was gone from his arm now, leaving only faint scars from the bite. She should have left him there. Should have quietly backed out and let him wake on his own. Instead, she gently touched his shoulder. Mr. Whitmore. Jonathan. You should go to bed. He stirred, disoriented, and for a moment his hand covered hers on his shoulder. The touch sent electricity through her, and she pulled away as if burned. Sorry, he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. What time is it? Almost midnight. You'll hurt your neck sleeping like that. Jonathan stretched, wincing. You're always taking care of me. That's literally my job, Naomi said, trying for lightness. Is it? Jonathan's dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Is that all this is? Your job? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. I don't know what you're asking me, Naomi said quietly, even though she knew exactly what he was asking. I think you do. Jonathan stood, and suddenly he was very close to her in the quiet study. These past 2 months. I've felt more alive, more myself, than I have in years. And it's because of you. Jonathan. I know this is inappropriate. I know you work for me, and there's a power imbalance, and this is probably the last thing you want to hear. It is the last thing I want to hear, Naomi interrupted, her heart hammering. Because I can't feel what I'm feeling. You're my employer. You're a billionaire. You're white. I'm your black maid, for God's sake. This is every terrible cliché rolled into one. I don't care about any of that, Jonathan said. You don't have to care. Naomi's voice rose despite herself. You have the luxury of not caring about optics, about what people will say, about power dynamics. I don't. When this inevitably falls apart, you'll still be Jonathan Whitmore III, billionaire. I'll be the maid who tried to sleep her way to a better life. The words were harsh, but they needed to be said. Naomi saw them land, saw Jonathan flinch. Is that really what you think? He asked. That I'm some rich guy looking for an easy conquest? I don't know what to think, Naomi admitted. 2 months ago, I didn't exist to you. Now suddenly you're having feelings? Forgive me for being skeptical. You're right, Jonathan said quietly. You didn't exist to me. Not really. I didn't let anyone exist to me because it was safer. But almost dying has a way of rearranging your priorities. And when I thought I was taking my last breaths, the thing I regretted most was how much life I'd missed by hiding from it. By hiding from connection. He moved to the window, looking out at the dark estate grounds. You want to know why you didn't exist to me before? Because I didn't exist to myself. I was just going through motions, building wealth I didn't need, proving something to people I didn't like. You gave me my life back, Naomi. And not just in the greenhouse. These past 2 months, talking to you, seeing the world through your eyes, I'm finally living instead of just existing. Naomi wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But she'd lived 42 years in a world that had taught her to be cautious, to protect herself, to recognize when something was too good to be true. I need to finish cleaning, she said, moving toward the door. I'm going to fix this, Jonathan called after her. The power imbalance, the employee thing, I'm going to fix it so that we can, so that you don't have to worry about what people think. You can't fix everything with money, Jonathan. I know. But I can try. The next morning, Mrs. Chen called Naomi into her office with an expression of barely contained shock. You've been given a promotion, the head housekeeper said. What? Effective immediately, you're the new estate manager. Salary increase, benefits, your own office. You'll oversee all household operations and report directly to Mr. Whitmore. Naomi's stomach dropped. He can't do this. He absolutely can, and he has. The paperwork is already processed. Mrs. Chen studied her. Naomi, what's going on between you and Mr. Whitmore? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Naomi sat down heavily. This is a disaster. Is it? Mrs. Chen tilted her head. He clearly values you. Respects you. And from what I can see, the feeling is mutual. He's my employer. He's also a man who nearly died and realized life is too short to waste. I've worked for the Whitmores for 20 years, Naomi. I've seen Jonathan grow up. I've seen him build an empire. I've seen him lonely, isolated, and lost. And I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. That doesn't make this right. Maybe not. But it doesn't make it wrong either. Mrs. Chen pulled out a folder. This is your new contract. Read it over. The job is real, not a fabrication to get around the employer-employee issue. He's reorganized the entire household management structure. You'd actually be working for the estate management company now, not directly for him. Naomi stared at the contract like it might bite her. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Naomi? Don't let fear keep you from something that might be extraordinary. For 3 days, Naomi avoided Jonathan. She took the promotion, it would have been stupid not to, and besides, Jasmine's medical school fund wasn't fully secured yet. But she reorganized her schedule so they wouldn't cross paths. On the 4th day, Jonathan found her in the estate's library, reviewing inventory. You've been avoiding me, he said without preamble. I've been working. Naomi, look at me. Please. She did, and the raw vulnerability in his face almost undid her. I'm sorry, Jonathan said. I bulldozed ahead with the promotion without asking you. I was trying to fix the power dynamic, but I just made you uncomfortable. That's the opposite of what I wanted. What do you want, Jonathan? You, he said simply. I want to take you to dinner. To learn everything about you. To see if this thing between us is real or just gratitude and proximity. I want a chance. And if people think I'm using you for your money? If your family and friends think you're having a midlife crisis? If the tabloids get hold of this and make it ugly? Let them think what they want. I know the truth. You know the truth. Isn't that enough? In your world, maybe. In mine, reputation is all we have. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, what if we started small? No public dates, no announcements. Just, two people getting to know each other. See where it goes. Against every ounce of common sense she possessed, Naomi found herself nodding. They started having dinner together twice a week, in the estate's small private dining room. Naomi would cook, she insisted on it, needing to maintain some element of control, and they would talk for hours. Jonathan told her about growing up with parents who measured love in stock portfolios, about building his company from dorm room to empire, about the loneliness of success. Naomi shared stories of growing up poor in Georgia, of her young marriage and divorce, of raising Jasmine alone while working multiple jobs, of the small joys that came from making a clean home beautiful. They discovered shared loves, old movies, terrible puns, thunderstorms, the smell of old books. They debated politics, philosophy, whether pizza was a sandwich. Jonathan made her laugh, Naomi made him think. And slowly, carefully, they fell in love. It was Jasmine who noticed first, 3 months into their quiet courtship. Okay, what's going on? Her daughter demanded one Sunday when Naomi came home from work practically glowing. What do you mean? Mom, you're humming. You never hum. And you've been smiling at your phone. Plus, you bought a new dress last week. So spill, who is he? Naomi considered lying but couldn't. She'd raised Jasmine to value honesty. It's complicated. It's Mr. Whitmore, isn't it? Your billionaire boss? How did you? Mom, you talk about him constantly. Jonathan thinks this, Jonathan said that. And when you told me about the scholarship, you got this look in your eyes. Jasmine studied her mother. Are you happy? I'm terrified, Naomi admitted. That's not what I asked. Yes. I'm happy. Happier than I've been in years. Which is why I'm terrified. Jasmine hugged her. You deserve this, Mom. You deserve someone who sees how incredible you are. It's not that simple, baby. There are so many complications. Love is always complicated. But it's also worth it. When had her daughter become so wise? The breaking point came during the Christmas holidays. Jonathan's family descended on the estate, his mother, imperious and cold, his brother, a corporate lawyer with a permanent sneer, his sister, who spent the entire visit on her phone. Naomi was supervising the holiday dinner preparations when Jonathan's mother cornered her in the kitchen. You're the one, Eleanor Whitmore said without preamble. Excuse me? The maid my son is apparently infatuated with. Eleanor's eyes were chips of ice. Don't play coy. The staff gossips, and I have ears. Naomi straightened her spine. With all due respect, Mrs. Whitmore, my relationship with your son is between him and me. Is it? Eleanor stepped closer. Because from where I stand, you're a gold digger who saved his life and is now cashing in. The words stung precisely because they echoed Naomi's own fears. I don't want Jonathan's money. Everyone wants money, dear. Some people are just better at pretending they don't. Eleanor's smile was sharp. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end whatever this is. Jonathan will go through a brief period of heartbreak and then meet someone appropriate. Someone from his world. And you'll continue to have a very well-paying job and your daughter's education funded. Everyone wins. Except the part where I give up someone I love, Naomi said quietly. Love. Eleanor laughed. You think this is love? It's gratitude and guilt. Give it 6 months, and Jonathan will realize what a mistake this is. You'll be humiliated, your daughter will be stigmatized, and the tabloids will destroy whatever dignity you have left. I'm offering you a way out with your pride intact. Before Naomi could respond, Jonathan's voice cut through the kitchen. That's enough, Mother. He stood in the doorway, his face set in lines of steel fury Naomi had never seen before. Jonathan, I heard what you were doing. And it ends now. He moved to stand beside Naomi, his hand finding hers. Naomi is not an employee I'm having a fling with. She's the woman I'm in love with. The woman who saved my life and then showed me how to actually live it. And if you can't treat her with respect, you can leave my home. Eleanor's mouth opened and closed. You can't be serious. This is professional suicide. Social suicide. She's... Careful, Jonathan said, his voice deadly quiet. Very careful about what you say next. She's not one of us, Eleanor finished. You're right. She's kind, genuine, and knows the value of things that matter. She's nothing like us. Thank God. Eleanor grabbed her purse. When this inevitably falls apart, don't come crying to me. I won't, Jonathan assured her. I have Naomi to cry to now. After Eleanor left in a fury of expensive perfume and bitter resentment, Jonathan turned to Naomi. I'm sorry. I should have prepared you, should have warned you. She said what I'd been thinking, Naomi admitted. That this is a mistake. That I'm going to end up humiliated. Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. Jonathan took both her hands in his. I believe in you. In us. And I'm tired of hiding it. Naomi Washington, I love you. I want the whole world to know it. But only if that's what you want too. Naomi thought about her fears, about Eleanor's threats, about the very real consequences of loving across the boundaries of class and race in a world that still judged such things harshly. Then she thought about Jonathan's laugh. The way he listened to her. How he'd learned to cook just so he could help her in the kitchen. The way he read her favorite books so they could discuss them. How he'd held her when she cried about her mother's cancer diagnosis and paid for the best treatment without being asked. She thought about happiness, real and fragile and worth fighting for. I love you too, she said. And yes, I want the world to know. Jonathan's smile could have lit the entire estate. He kissed her right there in the kitchen, and Naomi stopped caring about who might see, what they might think. The announcement was made on New Year's Eve. Jonathan posted a photo on his rarely used social media accounts, him and Naomi, dressed formally for the estate's party, her in a midnight blue gown he'd had custom made, his arm around her waist, both of them beaming. The caption read, starting the new year with the woman who gave me a new life. Naomi Washington, my hero, my love, my future. The internet, predictably, lost its mind. The responses ranged from supportive to skeptical to viciously racist. Naomi's photo was dissected, her background investigated, her worth debated by strangers who knew nothing about her. Jasmine faced questions at school. Naomi's friends from her old neighborhood had opinions, some supportive, others warning her about abandoning her roots. It was brutal. But through it all, Jonathan stood beside her. He hired security when the paparazzi got aggressive. He publicly shut down talk show hosts who made snide comments. He walked away from business deals with people who couldn't treat Naomi with respect. And 6 months later, on a quiet morning in the greenhouse, now rebuilt and snake-free, Jonathan got down on one knee. I've spent my whole life building an empire, he said, holding out a ring. But you taught me that a life without love is just an expensive prison. Naomi Washington, will you marry me? Naomi looked at the man she loved, thought about everything they'd overcome and everything they'd still face, and said the easiest word in the world, yes. The wedding was planned for the fall, and that's when the real controversy began. The media dubbed it the Cinderella story, which made Naomi's teeth grind. She wasn't a poor girl rescued by a prince. She was a woman who'd saved a man's life and then saved his soul. But Jonathan had one more surprise. 2 weeks before the wedding, he gathered Naomi, Jasmine, and his lawyer in his study. I've restructured my estate, Jonathan announced. Half of my personal wealth is being placed in a foundation dedicated to providing educational opportunities for underserved communities. The other half is split between myself and Naomi, 50-50. Jonathan, no, Naomi protested. I don't want your money. I know. That's exactly why I'm doing this. When we marry as equals. I want our partnership to reflect that. He looked at his lawyer. It's ironclad. Prenup states that regardless of what happens, Naomi gets half. If she divorces me, half. If I die, half. This isn't about money. It's about respect. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. You don't have to prove anything to me. I'm not proving anything. I'm honoring you. You saved my life, Naomi. Let me share it with you properly. The wedding took place on a perfect October day, exactly 1 year after the snake bite that had changed everything. They married in the estate gardens, surrounded by friends, Jasmine, and the staff who had become Naomi's family. Eleanor Whitmore didn't attend, but Jonathan's siblings did, won over by Naomi's grace and their brother's obvious happiness. As they exchanged vows, promises of partnership, love, and facing the world together, Naomi thought about the journey that had brought them here. She'd entered that greenhouse expecting to find a dying man. Instead, she'd found her future. I told you I'd pay you back for saving my life, Jonathan whispered as they were pronounced husband and wife. This isn't payment, Naomi whispered back. This is partnership. Even better, Jonathan said, and kissed her as their guests erupted in applause. 5 years later, Naomi stood in the greenhouse, now her favorite place in the estate, carefully tending a new orchid Jonathan had brought back from a business trip. Jasmine had just finished her first year of medical school with honors. The foundation had funded education for thousands of kids. And Naomi and Jonathan had built a life that was messy, complicated, and more real than anything either had experienced before. They still faced judgment sometimes. Still got looks when they appeared in public together. Still had to deal with people who couldn't see past race or class or the unconventional nature of their meeting. But they also had love. Real, deep, hard-won love. Jonathan appeared in the greenhouse doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee, a morning ritual they'd maintained despite everything. Thought I'd find you here, he said, kissing her temple. Just thinking, Naomi replied, leaning into him. About what? About the fact that I almost didn't come running that day. I almost figured someone else would handle it. Jonathan's arm tightened around her. But you did run. I did. My hero, he said softly. No, Naomi corrected, looking up at him. We saved each other. And in the morning light of the greenhouse, surrounded by flowers that bloomed despite harsh conditions, they stood together, 2 people who had found in each other not a rescue, but a partnership. Not a fairy tale, but something better, a real love story, complicated and beautiful and entirely their own. The little girl who'd grown up poor in Georgia had never dreamed of mansions or billions. She'd dreamed of dignity, of her daughter's success, of a love that saw her for who she truly was. Standing in her husband's arms, Naomi realized she'd gotten something better than dreams. She'd gotten real life, in all its messy, complicated, beautiful glory. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. The end. Sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the most extraordinary lives. Sometimes saving someone else's life is really about saving your own. And sometimes, love doesn't follow the rules, and that's exactly when it's most real.